Hey, this is Kaja Elliott, Bronx born and raised, ATL made, Bay Area becoming, and this is the As Told By podcast. Hey, episode 2 of season 2 of the As Told By podcast. I'm recording some of these episodes in advance, so by the time this episode airs, there will be an intro to go with the podcast that you hear and an outro. So that's a development from last season. And I'll post the information once the season starts. But the intro was produced by the infamous Monty Draper of Grand National. So I'm real happy to have that development, giving them a little bit more of a professional, polished sound. But yeah, I'm glad to be started here today on episode 2. I have a guest. Many of you probably know her. Love her. Okay, that was a hint. Love her. And many of you probably are wearing her. So I'm going to let her introduce herself so y'all know who we're talking to today.
Hey, y'all. So my name is Iguehi James. For those of you guys who do not know me, I am a Nigerian American. I am an Oakland native. I was born and raised in Oakland. So I guess what Kaja is hinting at is the fact that I am the owner, chief designer behind Love Iguehi. And Love Iguehi is an African-inspired clothing brand based here in Oakland, California. A little general information about me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'm a mom of 3. I have 3 little girls, a 9-year-old and twins that are 4 going on 14. And I'm a wife to an amazing man, Perrin James. He's also my business partner. And I am a lover of all things beautiful, of community, of people. And so I am actively working to build a brand that really celebrates those things. So that's just a little bit about me.
Yes, I love all of that. And I know people, like if you hang out with me or if you follow me on IG, you definitely have seen her pieces. Almost anytime I'm wearing something that's African print or African inspired, it is almost always from Love Iguehi. Yes, and when I did the first episode for the podcast with Cassandra DeLynn was my first guest, and she came decked out.
She was slaying.
In her caftan.
She was slaying in Love Iguehi. I love it.
Yes, she was. So I'm so happy to talk to you. Love the brand.
Thank you.
Love the clothes. So let's jump in and get started. So you mentioned that you are born and raised right here in Oakland. Yep. I believe West Oakland.
West Oakland.
Yeah? Yep. Okay. Come on, West Side. West Oakland is on the way up. I don't know what it was back in the day, but I noticed a lot of Black women-led businesses are starting to crop up in West Oakland.
West Oakland has evolved a lot since I grew up there.
Oakland as a whole.
Yep.
And I know you mentioned your family is of Nigerian descent. So talk a bit about your experience growing up with this proximity to these 2 very distinct but different cultures. So the culture of the Bay Area and then Nigerian culture.
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked that question. I think as a first generation Nigerian American here, anybody who's listening to this podcast who is a first generation kid will probably resonate with some of the feelings that I'm about to share. And I think a lot of the times being of kind of in 2 cultures, so obviously your parents' culture and, and then where you're born, you oftentimes feel kind of torn between 2 cultures. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I grew up in a home where my dad specifically, but both of my parents kind of always said, it doesn't matter where you're born, you're Nigerian first, Nigerian first. And that was like ingrained in my head. It was like, even if you were born here in America, if you were born in the UK, if you were born wherever, just know that Nigerian blood is in you. And so don't forget that, whatever that means, don't forget that. And I think too, as a young person, you want to fit in with your friends and your peers. And so I think that was challenging because I can't actually say that I was comfortable with my Nigerian culture when I was younger, because there weren't a lot of kids who were Nigerian in the schools that I was in, or just kind of in the social arena. And so I remember, I have a vivid memory of me pronouncing my own name in a way that sounded more American. And that just, so instead of saying Iguehi, right, because that's my name, I would say Iguehi. Because it just felt less strong. Okay. You know? and oftentimes people would mispronounce it Iguehi. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds better. And so like I cringe now, but it's an example of like what it felt like growing up in kind of this two worlds where my parents are like, hey, you're Nigerian, we're eating this African food, you're wearing the traditional dress, and you're wearing thread in your hair, right? So I don't know if you're familiar with threads, but threading is basically when you take like part your hair in little pieces and then you take the thread and you wrap it around, right? So now as an adult, I'm like, man, that was dope. I appreciate it. But at the time, my mom would thread my hair and I go to school and they'd be like, oh, there's snakes in your head. Oh, those are worms, So it's those type of experiences where you're like, okay, I'm different.
Yeah, you clearly get the feeling you're different. And I wonder, given those points that you made, first of all, it makes me immediately think about one of my best girlfriends. Shout out to Tola.
Hey, Tola.
Tola's Nigerian. I love her family because they exposed me so much to, Nigerian culture. And I remember the first time I went to her parents' house in Philadelphia, there was a huge portrait. She has a bunch of sisters, but there was a huge portrait of her parents and all of her sisters. And the first thing I noticed is even though all the little girls were maybe between 10 and 5, nobody had barrettes, bobos, all of that, like what you customarily see when you look at American little black girls, babies pictures. And I'm like, okay, no, this was everybody has a TWA. And it just looked so natural and organic. Yeah. And I love that. And I also love, she gave her daughter, of course, a traditional Nigerian name, Tiwalade. And it's interesting as she got older and got into school and how she would comment about the teacher's desire to kind of find a nickname for her. It's like, no, her name is Tiwalade, and that's what we will be calling her.
Constantly. And that was a big thing for me when I was growing up. And I think that's also played into the insecurities I had behind my name. People wouldn't even attempt to pronounce it,
Yeah.
And so as a child, like, you don't want to be embarrassed, you don't want to feel like an outcast. But I would know in class, like when they were calling roll call, especially if it's a new teacher, whenever they would pause, I'd be like, Iguehi. I probably was saying Iguehi, but I would just go ahead because I know that they're trying. And they'd be like, do you have a nickname? I'm like, but you didn't even try.
Right.
You didn't even try.
Meanwhile, we can say Mikhail Baryshnikov and whatever else.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're going to say this Iguehi. Right. But, how do you feel then about this kind of new wave of admiration for African culture amongst African Americans, right? Jollof festivals and the hairstyles and Black women sometimes clamoring over African men, specifically Nigerian men. And, because that was not always culturally accepted or desired in urban Black spaces, I always wonder, is there like a part of people who are first generation from an African country or first generation from a Caribbean country where they're kind of looking at us like, now y'all all on it. About 15, 20 years ago, it was like the outcast.
Right. I think there was this period of, kind of like the neo-soul period where you had artists like Erykah Badu and Lauryn Hill and Jill Scott and people who they weren't conforming to what society would try to portray of Black artists. I felt like this was a generation of women who felt comfortable in their skin, comfortable in their naturalness, and kind of really celebrated their ties to African culture. And so when you have people in those positions, I think us lay people, whoever, are more apt to be like, oh, okay. Oh, so she thinks it's cool. Okay, I think it's cool too, and kind of buy into that. there was a time, I don't know if it was like 2014. It might have been like 2012 to 2015, where all of a sudden I would see African clothes being worn. And I was shocked. Just widely, like everybody was into these maxi skirts, right? And this is kind of how Love Iguehi came about. But everybody was into these maxi skirts, and people were wearing natural hair. Everybody was, TWAs, and we trying to figure out how to do our hair because we hadn't really. We were going to shops and getting it relaxed and pressed and all that. And so there was a period where I was just seeing a lot of Ankara material being used for the clothes. And I had a conversation with a cousin, I'm air quoting because it was someone who I grew up with. We aren't blood, but that's just how we Nigerians and Africans roll. We grow together, you cousin, you auntie, right. And so I had a conversation. He was like, so what's up? Like, when we were growing up, it wasn't cool to be African. Now everybody is like trying to be tied to some country, African culture. And I was like, I know. As like, even as a Nigerian, growing up, I didn't feel comfortable the way I'm seeing, newly migrated Nigerians or immigrated Nigerians in this country being like, hey, talking. This is what it is. This is what it is. This is who I am. And so there's this level of like, dang, I wish I had that level of comfort. But I think that because there was this wave of people that were coming and saying like, I want to know about my roots. I want to be connected to where I came from. And then you have these wave of Nigerians like, hey, I'm Nigerian. Yes, I'm in the US, but this is who I am. I think it just increased the exposure to African culture where people were like, I'm curious to know more about me. Yeah. And I'm interested in wearing those clothes too. And I mean, the food is banging. So yes, food is banging. But I think it is this period of like, not acceptance, but allowing, being influenced by people in, I don't know, power, but like the artists
with visibility.
Yeah, the visibility, the increased visibility has allowed people to really say, okay, I want to learn more. I want to be part of this. Yeah.
And connect back to probably just an nth of what we don't know.
Right. Yeah. And that connection is so important. It's so important. I think that's what a lot of us Nigerians who can trace our family back and know where our family is, there is this sense of pride. There is this sense of connection that a lot of times my Black brothers and sisters don't have.
Don't have it.
Don't have it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Or, I mean, you just connect back as far as you can to the city or like the geographic region of the country where you're from. So it's amazing to kind of watch cultures have their moment, because I remember them catching hell like back in the days in school because they just were not the norm. So growth on our part. Right? I heard you mention the skirts and like people in the maxi skirts, and that's starting to be the beginning of your awareness of, there might be something here because there's an appetite for it. So what was the transition like from, employee having a regular job to entrepreneur, and how long was it before you felt that you had actually made the right choice in pivoting from one to the other?
Yeah. So I guess I didn't share this when I was introducing myself. So my background is actually in healthcare. I have a master's degree in public health, and I was working in the clinical research field for a while. Then I was working for telemedicine. And so while I was doing that, that's when I was observing this real interest in African prints and seeing how African prints were transformed into clothing, like everyday wear clothing. So for me growing up, because I was here, a lot of the times, I wore American English clothes. It was at times when I was going to formal events, going to weddings, going to parties, that's when we would wear traditional clothes. Right? That's not the case back home. Back home, you wear traditional clothes, formal events, casual events every day, right? But here in the U.S., it was mostly reserved for special occasions. So then this is when I was observing how people were wearing it kind of more casually, and I was like, like these are prints that I grew up with, seeing all the time. And everybody seems to be into it. So then that's when I did the whole like, oh, let me get on YouTube and see how they make these skirts. Yeah. You know, I had never sewn before, so I got on YouTube.
Really?
You didn't know that?
No, so you didn't even have like a sewing hobby or a seamstress background or the person in the family who makes things for people to wear?
I have a funny story. But when my husband and I were living in Chicago, this is how, no. Simple answer is no. I don't have a background in nothing. But funny story, in Chicago, my husband, a button came off of his shirt and he was like, babe, can you sew this button on for me? I'm like, I don't know how to sew. You have to take it to the cleaners and have them repair. And sure enough, amazing. He had to take it to the cleaners because I didn't do it. I didn't know how to do it. So I've come a long way from the buttons.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
I've come a long way. So taught myself how to sew in 2015, watching YouTube videos.
Well, let me tell you something. YouTube is, and I underrate it all the time. YouTube University. You do a whole new skill.
It really, if you want to learn something, just get on YouTube and do a little search. I'm sure somebody is doing some kind of training tutorial or something. So that's what it is. That's what I did. I just got immersed in all the little videos people had, and I would just pull all-nighters, messing up material because I was trying to learn.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I remember I made one skirt. And I posted it on Facebook like, oh my God, y'all, look, I made a skirt. And everybody's like, make me one. I'm like, no, this is the first skirt I have ever made. I don't know that I will. I can't even charge nobody for this because, yeah. So went from that to, okay, I'm going to really practice doing this because I enjoy, this is almost like a form of therapy for me. And so I started sewing and I would post stuff, and then people were like, no, for real, I want to buy something. And so I said, okay, all right. I had one person who I didn't know. That was my first customer. And she was like, yeah, I saw your skirts. I want to buy one. I was like, okay. So that was the start.
Real now.
It's real. Like, I'm about to take somebody's money.
Who I don't know.
Yes. Okay. So it was that. And then I was encouraged to do a vendor booth at a conference. It was called The Power of Her Brunch at the time. So Jennifer Hammock is the person who organizes this conference. It's now called, oh my God, The Power of Her Conference. But wait, am I blanking out? I think I might be mixing up the names. But she had a brunch, and she was like, you should be a vendor. And I didn't want to do it. And then she was like, no, you're going to do it. I'm giving you this table. You're going to do it. So I went there with my couple skirts that I made and fabric. And at that event, that is the event that I realized, okay.
You're onto something.
I'm onto something. Because so many women, I don't want to say sight unseen because they saw the 2 samples, but it wasn't like they could try on anything. And they were like, yep, I want you to make me one too.
Oh.
It was such a special moment.
Straight off the fabric. Just off the premise of the fabric.
It was amazing. So from then on, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. In 2018 is when I actually left my job to do it full time.
Okay.
And that was because I had, in 2017, I had given birth to twins. And then I had my oldest daughter too. So it was like, okay, I'm working a corporate job and I have this side hustle and I have these infants with an S. And I said, something has to give. And so at that time, that's when I decided to step away with the encouragement of my husband. I stepped away from that good job and I took a bet on myself.
And the bet paid off?
And the bet is paying off.
The bet paid off.
Yeah.
It feels like I did my research. I try to research people
That's
before
good.
I interview them because
Lord,
I want to know a little bit about them. But I mean, it's like the creativity bus let off at your family home because you and all of your siblings, or as many of them as I know about, all have like these really great front-facing creative endeavors. And I think I read something where your parents even have their own creative talent as well. So what was it like growing up in a family of people who had all these different creative talents?
So my dad is an artist. Like, he is an artist. He paints, he does sculptures. We grew up in a house where you barely saw the white walls.
Okay.
Yeah. So we grew up around color. We grew up around abstract art, African sculptures, things that he would bring home from Nigeria and things that he would create. So that was the environment that my siblings and I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you said you're my parents, but my mom is a great cook, but she can't even cut a straight line.
That's creative food.
Oh, it definitely is.
Yes.
And so I think as a young person, you kind of almost take it for granted that you're growing up in this artistic space, because I never really thought of myself as an artist. I don't know that my siblings thought of themselves as an artist until we became artists in different ways. Seriously, I don't think any of us were like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to do these things. I never had aspirations to do design, fashion. Like, I was on that straight and narrow, the track,
yes.
And so I think that it's very much proof of like, this is in us.
Yes.
And we've all expressed our artistic talents in different ways. So like, my brother has a clothing line. He's a world-renowned DJ. My youngest sister is a model. And the sister closest to me, she's like an excellent cook, and she does home redesign, decorating. And it's just kind of like, wow, like, I guess we all did get a bug, and we've all expressed it in different ways, but it's actually pretty darn cool.
It is.
So yeah.
Yes. Look, it just made its way on down the line.
It has presented itself in different ways.
Yeah. So, Iguehi, I'm going to flash back a little bit to the True Love Fashion Show last year. Losing track of time.
Yes.
I had the random luck. So I have already been following your brand. I already had several pieces, and I just happened to see on Instagram that they were doing their magazine release, and they were having the fashion show, and you were going to be one of the designers. I'm like, okay, well, I want to go see the designs in person. So I get dressed in my Love Iguehi dress.
Yes.
And I get to the fashion show, and somehow through some stroke of luck, I just happened to end up in a front row seat. I just came and sat down, and no one asked me to move. And then when the show was about to start, I was like, oh, this is a front row seat. So I'm like, okay, great. But, in being seated where I was, I felt like I got a really good look at the collection. But seeing all the different pieces together presented, it was like easy for me to see the common thread of color and texture and like these really intentional feminine details. So what is your go-to recommendation for people who are accustomed to wearing more minimalistic looks, who want to step things up? Because your line has a lot of color. There, of course, is patterns.
Yeah.
There are borders, there's wraps, there's all of these details. So for the brown, black, beige people, no shame to them, who want to shake up their wardrobe a little bit, what do you recommend they start with, or how can they get color and pattern ingratiated into their wardrobe if they maybe don't want to wear a whole dress or, a whole outfit of color or pattern?
So the really interesting thing that I've noticed about my line and my customers is that oftentimes my pieces are the first African inspired clothing they've ever worn. Mm-hmm. And I think it speaks to my intentionality of creating pieces that people feel comfortable in. So I intentionally design pieces that can be incorporated into someone's existing wardrobe, right? Mm. And so you may have a favorite pair of jeans. You may have a favorite logo tee. And I have a duster that's going to go really cute with that outfit. That's just going to zhuzh it up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You may have a dress that you really, really love, but I have a hair wrap that would match that dress, that would match your favorite shoes.
Just turn it up.
And turn it up just a little bit, right? And so those little things, they may seem small, but they pack a big punch, and people notice it, right? And so for people who are not used to wearing color or don't know how they will look in color, I always say, start with a purse. Start with a clutch purse. Mm-hmm. So you're wearing your same clothes that you typically wear and you feel comfortable in, you feel good in. Throw on a purse. It's a really easy pop of color. It's not a huge commitment.
Right.
And I promise you someone will notice even your purse, right? I always recommend people do dusters though.
Yeah. The dusters are nice.
The dusters they're easy throw on. Mm-hmm. They typically are bright and colorful, but again, you can tone it down and wear jeans, you can wear a t-shirt, you can wear a tank top, you can wear it over your favorite fitted bodycon dress. And it just adds a level of spice to things that you already feel comfortable in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you can just have what I sometimes do, which is just luxury time at your house.
Absolutely. Hey, I just shot today for these new caftans that are coming out soon. And even in shooting, I felt fabulous. Okay. In the caftan because it was nice and comfortable and bright, and easy and something I can wear in the house and still feel cute. I think oftentimes, especially as you get older, you just be tired. You don't even feel like putting in the effort to keep it together, right? But if you put on something, you'd be surprised at how much it affects your mood. I tell you all the time, like, put on something nice. I promise you feel a little better.
A little neck jewelry, some earrings.
It'll make you feel better.
It doesn't take a whole lot.
Nope.
Yeah. I wear mine around the house from time to time, even though I try to save them for
special occasions.
Stunting in these Oakland streets. So what inspires your design aesthetic? And can you speak to any particular tribal significance of the fabrics and the patterns that you use for your pieces?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The things that inspire my design really is like the woman's body. Right? And just like I look at people all the time. And it's just fascinating to see people's different shapes, their sizes, their heights, their weight. So I just observe, and I try to design pieces that, so if you look at my collection, you'll see I don't have a lot of form-fitting things, or I have things that are a couple sizes. I do a lot of belts because if people want to, accentuate their waist or, feel more comfortable with something a little more tight, we give that option. But a lot of my clothes are intentionally loose fitting because I realize as a woman, our bodies, my body has changed a lot. And there's nothing more irritating than having a closet full of clothes that you cannot fit.
Yes.
Right? And so I try to create pieces that are kind of generous in sizing. Again, you can style it how you want to make it yours, but the woman's body is my inspiration. As far as the fabrics, again, these are wax prints that I grew up seeing every day as a Nigerian child here. It's interesting. Sometimes I'll buy certain fabrics from my supplier, and my mom was like, this reminds me of and there's certain fabrics I look at, I'm like, this reminds me of Ishan. That's my parents' native tribe. This takes me back to when you used to tie me on your back. Because while there's a lot of new prints, there's some prints that are just like traditional. Like traditional. But for me, when I buy things, I'm trying to buy things that I think are fun. Again, I think about colors that may work with different people's wardrobes. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing in your sourcing process is working.
Thank you.
Because I always feel like there's a lot of options.
There's a lot of for me or just in general.
No, I mean just in general with what you offer. Like some people really like a blue-green palette. Some people really like a red-purple palette. And I feel like there's always options, across a broad color spectrum of what you like, don't like, maybe what you want to try. So I think you always do a good job of having a lot of color variety.
Oh, thank you. I didn't realize that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like there's a lot of options as far as African prints with other designers and stuff like that to choose from. And there are a lot.
Well, okay, let me parallel park here for a second. There are a lot. I think let the buyer beware, right? First of all, you don't know who you're buying from. Just because there's Black people in the advertisement, you don't know who's on the other side of that.
Fact.
Quote unquote, selling you your culture. Let me just put another asterisk next to this. I swear I'm not going to get stuck here. I just went to Durant Square for the first time ever. I've been in the Bay for 8 years. So I went to Durant Square for the first time. And I'm sure it's very different from what it used to be back in the day. But it was just so shocking to me, Black culture being sold to Black people and no Black person, at least not visibly, has their hand in the money.
Wow.
So
I haven't been there to see this.
I was going to say you're not missing much, but I won't say that. But what I will say is, you have to be aware of just seeing African clothes marketed and sold and buying, because I don't know that that's even a Black person on the other side of that selling. And then also we all know that there's like these really, well, I will say cheap. I didn't want to say that word, but these just cheap iterations of culture just being printed on something and here you go.
For sure.
So for me personally, and it absolutely would be my recommendation, I want to buy from what I know.
Yeah.
For this kind of clothing, I want to buy from where there's some authenticity going into what is being sold. So,
well, I appreciate this.
I try to do my due diligence.
You're doing it.
Yes. So you just recently opened your brick and mortar store in downtown Oakland. I think has it been a year yet?
Oh, no.
No, right?
No, I officially opened in March of this year.
Okay.
So it's just been a few months.
Yes. So you're in there.
I'm in there.
If you haven't been to the store, you should go.
Come on by.
Come on by. But how has it been engaging with your customers in person? And what has the overall experience of being strictly an online retailer to now being online and in brick and mortar, what has that been like?
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions. Okay, let me try to break it down a little bit. So prior to COVID, I had a website, but I wasn't really updating things. It was really to kind of validate that I'm a business. But at that time, prior to COVID, I would do pop-ups. So when there was different marketplaces and festivals and stuff like that, I would vend there. So that's how I typically met people and allowed them to experience the brand, touch and feel the fabrics, try things on, and so forth. When COVID hit, it pretty much shut down. No, it didn't pretty much. It shut down everything I had planned for 2020. It was crazy because it was the year that I was actually excited. I had gotten to this big craft fair that I had applied to before and got denied. And I got in this year and I got some other things lined up. And COVID happened, and it was like, nah, sis.
Nothing.
When I tell you my calendar was cleared, it was actually paused for a while. People were like, we're going to push it back till September. We're going to push it. Then I was like, it's not happening.
It's going to be gone by the summer. It's like,
So it cleared out my in-person events, and that forced me to really ramp up my online presence.
Okay.
That is when I was like, okay, this is the only way I get to reach my people. All right. Let me call my web designer. Let me call, my photographer and try to piecemeal something so we can get this website going. So for the past couple years that we've been in COVID, we're coming out of it Thank God, even though there's like a new insurgence.
crop.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But during that time, everything was online, and that worked well. But there's something really special about touching and feeling and trying on clothes that cannot be replicated with any kind of online shopping.
Yes.
It just cannot.
I don't know how people buy clothes without trying them on. I know they do all the time, and maybe if you have a more linear body, you can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a point in my life where I either have to buy from people who have a very liberal return policy, or I have to try it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I did the online, but having the store has just been, the way it came about was very unexpected. I wasn't looking for a store and all that, but God worked it out how it should work out, right? It has been such a special experience, not only for me, but for everybody who comes in, because one, I'm still small, so I'm there. Yeah. I'm the one working there, right? So I get to meet the people who have ordered from me for years, who learned about me through masks, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's always fun. Yeah. Like, it's always fun. And then it's an opportunity for people to, I always say, like, don't come thinking you have to buy something. I'm not the person that's going to pressure you to buy. What I would encourage you to do is just try things on, so that if you do see something later on down the line, you kind of know how it fits on you. Yeah. If you see something online that I released, it's a new print, you either know, okay, yeah, I like it, or, it doesn't work for my body. So I always try to encourage people to try things on. But the space is great because I feel like it's just the beginning, right? I have the clothes. We're slowly opening up. We have limited hours, but people come during those hours. But I'm moving to a place where I would like to do events and have small gatherings that are centered around not only my business, but other people's business, because I know what it is to only be able to reach people online. Yeah. And I know what it is to not have a retail space. Prior to COVID, like Taylor J opened her store to me to do a pop-up there for a few hours. And it was great. Like, I could see like, oh, this is what it is to have this dedicated space. This is really nice. Yeah. So I would love to be able to afford that opportunity for other small business owners who may not have a brick and mortar, but just needs the space, to display their things. So I'm looking forward to that, because I think it really speaks to what I'm trying to build as far as community, a space of love, a space of beauty. It's just like my little drop of Oakland right on 13th Street, where I'm able to cultivate that.
Yes, and the store is beautiful.
Thank you.
It's really nice.
Thank you.
What are people supporting? What are they buying into when they buy a piece from Love Iguehi?
They are buying, it's so much. They're buying into the culture. They are buying to this Black woman who is chasing her dreams. They're buying into community. They're buying into themselves. The brand really is about love. And it is always my goal that people like see it and they feel it. There are so many other African inspired brands. I see it. I follow them. There's people, designers who do much more complex, designs, pieces, dresses. I love it. I don't know that that's what I aspire for my brand, but what I do want, like, really, I want people to feel good and look good. Yep. That's it. Like, I want you to feel beautiful and feel like you look beautiful too. Because there's something about looking good, feeling good that allows you to walk with your head a little higher. Yeah. Step, have a little pep in your step. Okay.
And you let the wind catch the end of one of those sheer dusters.
Look.
Of your own Beyonce moment.
That's it. That is it. But that's what people are buying into, that feeling. It's a feeling. Yeah. It's a feeling that inspires you to keep dreaming and keep doing and keep being, that I want people to take when they take away when they hear or, hear about Love Iguehi.
Yeah. Well, this has been great to hear all about you, all about your business. I have just one more question for you. I know you started talking about in your intro that you are a family woman, right? You're a daughter, you're a wife, you're a mom of little ones, and now, a business owner. So what would you say to a woman in those same roles who wants to step into their own entrepreneurial endeavor, but is unsure about their ability to successfully manage all of these competing priorities?
I would encourage you to chase after whatever dreams, goals, ambitions you have. I would encourage you to give yourself grace. And I will remind you that, because people often ask me, like, how do you balance it all? I'm like, I'm not balancing it all. I'm not. It's like juggling. Sometimes balls get dropped.
Yeah.
And it's seasons. I'm in a season of trying to raise little ones, right? And build this business. And so because I'm trying to do both pretty well, I can't open my business 5 days a week. I can't open it 7 days a week like maybe some of my counterparts because I have young ones. And for my young people, I can't be at every soccer game. Daddy might have to go because I have to work the store, right? Yeah. And so there's going to be sacrifice in that pursuit of being a good mom and a business owner and a wife and a good friend and a sister. And you just hope and pray and communicate to your community of people, your tribe, like, I'm in a season right now. I need you to allow me some grace while I'm trying to do these things. I love you. I'm going to be there for you as much as I can. But just know that I'm in this season right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that.
Thank you.
Well, tell people where they can find you online, for those of us here in the Bay Area, at your store, and then on social media.
Yeah. So our website is loveiguehi.com, and that's LOVEIGUEHI.com. If you're here local to the Bay Area, I have a brick and mortar store in downtown Oakland. The address is 308 13th Street in Oakland, California. And then you can find me on social at Love Iguehi on Facebook, on Instagram, on Pinterest. Ain't nothing on there, but I'm there.
But you're there
I'm
anyway.
there.
Okay.
They say, just put yourself out there. So I'm in those spaces. But if you really want to connect and see what's going on with the business as far as social, Instagram and Facebook are probably the best arenas.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For coming out and doing episode 2 with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Anyone who is not following me currently on social media, you can follow me at Kaja versus Kaja. That's KAHJA_VS_KAHJA. That's it for this episode. I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.